Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what it do, everybody? It's your boy, John Altidor, Pro Fan Sports Podcast, where the fans of the pros go back at you with my boys, Vlad, Barry, and today, an Emmy Award-winning host and Red Sox sideline reporter, Jahmai Webster. How you doing, brother?
Hey, man, I'm cooling. I'm just chilling right now. It's an off day, so I'm just relaxing and catching up on everything. That's all.
Right, one of the few off days in baseball, right? Because y'all got like 1,062 games a year.
Yeah. It's definitely a grind, man. It's a grind for sure. But, the Red Sox got a lot built in over the last half of the season. So it'll work out. It all seems to balance itself out. But, a lot of games for sure. They catch up with you fast.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, welcome to Pro Fan Sports Podcast. If you're watching right now, please make sure you're subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to support us. And we got our boy Jahmai Webster in the house. So, show him some love by liking the video as well. Well, before we get into everything, definitely, we discuss a lot of Celtics and Patriots on this podcast. So we don't get a chance to get, a lot of the guys from the Red Sox. And we're definitely glad to have you today. But I definitely want to know, like, a little bit about your background story. How'd you end up working with the Red Sox and, pretty much your journey in this industry right now?
Yeah. So, it's a long story, but I try to, condense that. Everybody here, the podcast audience and the folks watching. But, basically, I started I guess I'll go to college. I majored in broadcast journalism from the West Coast. I went to Cal State Northridge. It's a state school just, about 20 miles north of downtown Los Angeles. So that's where I'm from. Grew up in Inglewood. My parents moved out to the San Fernando Valley later, and that's where I went to high school and then eventually went to college there. But I majored in broadcast journalism. I got my degree after I was on the 5-year plan. I didn't get out of there in 4 years, but it's all about graduating. Yeah. I got my degree, and then once I got to school, I kind of knew that this was the career path for me. This was something that I wanted to pursue really early on. It was like elementary school where I was like, all right, this is where I wanted to go. Obviously, I played sports, but after high school, I was like, I could grind and, walk on or, start at a D3 or something and hoop. But I was like, I just wanted to get into a career path that was going to be fulfilling and lead me to, a place that I wanted to in TV. So that's the path that I chose. So once I graduated, and this was 2008, so I was sending my demo reels all over the place. And this is the time before, now everything's so digital, you can just send quick links to news directors or whatever. But I had to put all my stuff on DVDs, my 11-minute resume tape, and I sent them to about 100 stations across the country. And obviously anybody knows that's too long, right? Like you cannot watch, nobody's watching 11 minutes.
11 minutes, yeah.
I finally figured out as I got later. So, but, they watched the first minute or so. And, of the 100 tapes that I sent around, which was very expensive because I was a broke graduated college student at that point. One person called me back, and that's all you really need to give you a chance. So I started my broadcasting career in College Station, Texas, small market, working as a number 3 guy over there. And basically that meant, there was a sports director, a guy who would be on the TV Monday through Friday. And then you had the weekend guy who would also work 3 days during the week, and then he'd anchor during the weekends. And then that was me. I just kind of gathered content, did interviews, and, I'd fill in when they needed me. So I did that, starting College Station, Texas, where Texas A&M University is, covering the Aggies and high school sports. High school football obviously is massive over there. So did that, grinded for about a year. And then my boss got fired. So the weekend guy moved up. And so I moved up to the weekend guy. and our main station was in Waco, Texas. So then I moved up there about 90 miles away. So then I was covering Baylor, but also covering A&M and still the area sports in Central Texas. And after about 2 years there, I just felt like I had hit a ceiling and I wasn't really elevating anymore. And I was like, all right, it's time to look for the next gig. So again, here I am grinding, putting out my resume tape, trying to feel what are available jobs out there. So I applied to Honolulu, Hawaii. So without really even thinking that it was a possibility, and like the dude who ended up hiring me, may he rest in peace, Robert K. Kaula, he called me like an hour after I submitted my application. So he must have like watched my tape. He was like feeling me. But this was like 1 o'clock in the morning in Texas. So obviously Hawaii is 5 hours time difference at that point in time. So he called me and I was like, dude, who's this calling me at 1 o'clock in the morning? So obviously I didn't answer. Then the next day I called him back. Long story short, we got there and I ended up moving to Hawaii, sight unseen, never had visited the island, never had been there. My parents went there once for a honeymoon and that was about it. I got a t-shirt and then I ended up living there for 4 years. So after that, I was, I signed a 3-year contract when I got there, but I was like, I'm looking for the next thing once again. So now bigger markets are trying to call and I'm getting to more repetitions in my career. And also I'm getting better. I'm improving. So other people are starting to take notice. So after 3 years, I was like, I got to find something else. Nothing came. So I ended up sticking around for another year, which is probably the best thing that could happen to me because it was just a magical place. Like I still think that, that's where I developed the most. And I really call it home. Like I try to go back every year, but after 4 years in Hawaii, then I went to Denver. I was in Denver for 2 years and I was the evening sports anchor at the ABC affiliate there, KMGH. And once again, just grinded it out. And I signed a 2-year deal with the expectation that I'd be moving on fast. So I didn't really put down roots in Denver, but I love Denver. It's a fantastic city. And I wish I would have been more like, embracing it because it really is a dope place to live, but spent 2 years there. And then here comes the part where I get to NESN. So after a while, I went to this National Association of Black Journalists convention that happens every year. It's a national organization. And it was in Minneapolis this year. So I'm on the job fair on the floor and I'm trying to talk to people and prospective employers and met a guy by the name of Larry Lawson, who was the news director at NESN at the time, a director of news. He's no longer there. He's gone on, but he brought me in and my agent talked to him. So we already had like this expectation that we would meet and had a rapport. So from there, this was in August of 2016, September. And I'll never forget because it was September 11th. September 11th, like I'm flying to Boston to audition to work at NESN. And that happened in a matter of a couple weeks. So then a couple weeks after that, after I auditioned, they offered me the job to be, a host, reporter, and anchor their news programs or whatever. So this happened so fast. And then I moved to Boston on October 16th, 2016.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it happened really fast and I've been there ever since. And basically that was Big Papi's last year. If you guys recall, they lost in the playoffs in Cleveland. So I got here after the playoffs, after they had that first round exit. So spring of 2017 was my first time covering the Red Sox. And I went to spring training that year and they told me that I would be filling in. There was another person at the time who was in the role full time and they told me I'd be filling in on a consistent basis and I'd have a few games here and there. And just to spell somebody, because as we talked about at the top of the show, like it's a massive grind. People don't really understand, like working every day for 6 months, how that takes a toll on your body, right? So I did that. She went down. She had an injury. So I ended up working like 75 games, like off the shoot, out the jump, right? With no expectations, like never doing this before. But I ended up going on road trips out to the West Coast and working like 75 games that season. And it was just like a crazy ride because like you're a little bit apprehensive because you're like, I don't know what to expect because I've never done this before. But at the same time, you don't have any opportunity to think about how big of a deal this is, right? Like how much people in New England love the Red Sox, how they're hanging on every single pitch, how it's much different here sports-wise than any other place in the country, really. So that was an amazing ride. And then the next season, I would continue to follow up. So my games went down a little bit the next season because she was healthy. And then the third year I did like 50 games, and it was like half on the road, half at home. And then last year it was a pandemic, right? So 60 games, I didn't do not one because nobody's traveling.
That's crazy.
So
yeah, right.
That was crazy. And then fast forward to this year, where now my first season as a full-time sideline reporter, and we're still not traveling, but the world is kind of making its way back. So things feel a lot different than when I first started, but a lot of it is the same. So that's kind of how I journeyed here, and the 5-6 minutes that it took me to tell that story.
Hey, man, that's fascinating stuff. We like to ask that question just to illustrate how much work, the people like you have to do to get where you're at. You know what I'm saying? It's not just something you just wake up and boom, you're there. So it's definitely
I mean, this is 13 years of work to get to this point. You know what I mean? I've been doing this for 13 years now, and it felt like I'd never get here when I first started. You feel like, oh man, I don't know. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's just amazing sometimes to just be able to sit back and see the work that you put in to get to this point. Because I mean, you guys know, you think about it, there's not many more prominent organizations to be a part of. Like, you could be the sideline reporter for the Red Sox, Yankees, probably Dodgers is a prominent job, the Cubs, you know what I mean? Places like that. And there's not many of those out there. So, I'm grateful for this opportunity for sure. And, I'm happy to be in the place that I'm in.
Well, congrats. That's just an amazing story. And to have that job is a great fit. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that, and I don't take it lightly. That's for sure.
Absolutely. What do they say? It takes 10 years to be an overnight success, right?
Right.
You got to be grinding, man. But like you said, you grew up in Cali. How are your people treating you now that you're in Boston?
Man,
with the enemy, man.
I tell you what, man. My whole family's still Laker fans. And my dad's actually from the Bay Area. So he's from San Francisco, which is, NoCal and SoCal got its own beef, right? So he's a Giants fan, but like my brothers, they're Dodgers fans, but also like Giants fans, which is weird. Really, you can't have that. So, I mean, 2018 World Series, like, I'm torn, you know what I mean? Like, these are the people who pay my checks, and I got relationships with these guys here in Boston because, like, I cover these players and see the work that they put in. So, obviously, you want them to do well, right? But then your childhood team is here after 32 years, right? Haven't won the World Series since 1988, and they're knocking on the door against the team that you cover. So, it was tough, man. And, the Red Sox ended up taking it, and winning it. But then the Dodgers also, they got their chance last year. So I guess it was all, meant to be, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely,
for sure. No doubt, man.
The Boston sports media can be intense. You hear all the stories. You hear from the players that's played here before. And, there's a stigma here, right? And, as African Americans, minorities, we definitely hear those stories for sure. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about as far as like, racism and stuff like that. We have our stance here on this show. Did you do any research on that before you joined the Red Sox? And have you had that kind of experience that people talk about, in the media?
Right. No, I mean, I didn't really. I just kind of, like, I didn't search into, the racism or, the subtleties of that or any of the prejudices that are going on here. But I just had that preconceived notion about the things that I've heard about Boston, right? And how it could be a tough place and how it was difficult for minorities and Black folks. So I had that in the back of my mind, but it's not something that I did extensive research on. I like to come in here and think about, I'm going to give this place a fresh start, an opportunity for me to have it with, fresh eyes on it and to be able to take my experience for my own, right? So I'd be lying if I say I didn't experience some of that in that time that I've been here, right? And it's been more subtle. Like, it hasn't been really overt, you know what I mean? Right. So it's been some subtleties where it's things like where a situation will happen and you'll question it, you'll take a step back and be like, did that really happen? Or like, what? You know what I mean?
You ask yourself,
you ask exactly. So nothing overt though. Nobody really has been emboldened to be that reckless, but subtle things that you hear.
Overt or not, it is what it is, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
there's no such thing as small racism or little racism. Racism is racism.
No,
But,
no doubt about it. No
Yeah.
doubt about it. And you know, and to Boston's credit, New England's credit, it's been overly positive experience for the most part. So I will say that, and nothing like I expected, because I expected it to be, you know, the civil rights movement, almost the way people would really talk about it. I mean,
and
keep it a buck.
I think that's my point for asking that question, right? Because it seems like it's very amplified in the media.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like something they talk about constantly, and to me, I feel like, well, that's not fair. Like, is Boston like more racism than Mississippi? It's like,
Right.
What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? And I think there's definitely that reputation that kind of like puts a stain on the city, which is like, we grew up here. I don't.
Right. And I will say that too. I was very pleasantly surprised to see how many Black Bostonians there were coming here. I didn't really have that expectation. I thought it'd be, you know, like I was in Idaho or something, you know, or it'd be like 90% white folks. But it has diversity. But I did notice too, like it's pockets. You know what I mean? It's like these folks over here, these folks over here. It's not exactly collective, you know, community in that regard.
Absolutely, man.
For sure.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important that we put that out there. You know, maybe try to change the narrative a little bit. It's like, right, you'll be all right, man. You know what I'm saying? It's not, you know, like you said, it's not the civil rights era, man. It's just, unfortunately, there's a stigma, so we got to deal with that right there. So obviously, the Red Sox are in season right now. You know, they started off real hot, you know, winning games all over the place, and since then, you know, kind of cooled off a little bit. Now we're on the hunt for a wild card spot, you know, to get into the postseason. What's your thought on the season, how everything's been going?
Man, I will say, I've been saying from the beginning, like I knew this team was a playoff team. So was I surprised about how hot they started? Almost, like, not really. Like, I guess I was surprised at how good they would be and how far everybody else was off to start, you know, the first 2-3 months of the season, right? Until we got into the All-Star break. And that's the moment where it felt like they kind of fell back to earth a little bit. But even after that, like, they played the Yankees, swept them at their place. It just felt like, you know, this is some of the 2018 magic that we had experienced. So I knew this team would win about 85, 90 games. I knew they would be in that threshold. Where that would leave them, though, in a highly competitive division, when I felt like at the time, like the Yankees on paper looked like a better team. I thought the Toronto Blue Jays were up and coming. You know, they signed George Springer, and he had been killing the Red Sox for several years coming out of Houston. And then I thought about the Tampa Bay Rays, who just won the American League pennant, right? And we're in the World Series. And you could argue that if Blake Snell never came out of that game, the Dodgers wouldn't be champions right now, right? That's something that was constantly scrutinized over the entire course of the winter. So I thought that the Red Sox would be competitive. I just didn't understand that they would be world beaters out of the gate. But now they're kind of they're not as bad as they were over this last stretch of terrible August that they had, but they're also not as good as they were, you know, coming out of that first 2-3 months of the season. So I think right now, you know, they control their own destiny for that top wild card spot. You know, they got a couple coming up against the Mets, and then a big series against the Yankees for 3 games where they could potentially bury them if they sweep them, or, you know, taking 2 out of 3 will still be a gut punch to the Yankees' hopes, but you hope it's not in the reverse. But even if it is, I feel like they have an opportunity to rally, because after that they go to Baltimore, and then they finish the year against the Nationals on the road. So these are teams, you know, that are not good. You know, the O's, they lost 100 games for the 3rd time in the last 4 years. And 2020 wasn't a full 162-game season, and they still finished 10 games below 500, which wasn't great. So they're in a full-on rebuild. Washington, they shipped off a lot of their pieces at the trade deadline. They got Juan Soto, but that's just about it. And you think that they'll be able to sweep or at least take 2 out of 3 from both of those series and find themselves in a good position. So I think they'll be hosting the wild card. Who they play could change the equation a little bit, but I feel like they're going to get to the division series and be playing the Tampa Bay Rays. So after that, it's a crapshoot. You know, you feel like you your best arms against some of their best arms, and they matched up pretty well over the course of the season. So it'll be an interesting series. And then, playoff baseball is much different than the regular season. Everything is high stakes. Every move that is made is scrutinized. So I like the Red Sox chances to, be sneaky good, to steal a word from Garrett Richards earlier in the year. So we'll see where it ends up. But then again, I've always been known as the eternal optimist, so we'll see.
Hey, we're optimistic on this show as well. And, due to the current state of the world, with what's going on, we're not going to say what's going on because YouTube has a funny way of, making sure these, making sure that shows that talk about the C word don't get views and stuff like that. So we're not even going to mention the C word, but obviously, due to, the state of the world right now, the Red Sox got hit pretty hard. Right. It seemed like every day there was somebody going down, with the situation. Like, what is the issue with that right there? And how come, they've been hit the hardest?
It's tough, man. It's tough to say, really, because, as it's so much uncertainty still 18, 20, 22 months into this pandemic, right? And part of the reason, obviously, is because they're one of 6 teams in Major League Baseball to not have reached that 85% vaccination threshold, which was the mark where Major League Baseball will feel like, all right, we're going to lessen some of the protocols because you guys are protected against this virus. And even then, right, like, let's be 100% clear here. Like, the vaccine is not a cure, right? It's just going to do its job in protecting you from becoming severely sick, or worst case scenario, expiring, like dying, right? So I think for a team in a team sport like baseball, when you lose guys on the COVID IL because of their close contact or if they come down with the virus, I think a lot of people that I've spoken to who seem to have been hesitant about it, they say, I think about it, and every situation that comes up, every answer that I come up with is because I'm doing it for somebody else. It's like, yeah, this is a community thing. We're all doing it from somebody else to protect each other, to get out of this together, right? Like, you think I want to just poke myself and take 2 jabs? Like, no, I did it because I got small children. I got family. I got elderly folks in my family, who aren't as healthy as me, right? So, yeah, I did it for somebody else as well, but also for the community around me. So it's tough because a lot of the Red Sox, as we've come to find out, since August 27th, I mean, they've had 14 players land on the COVID IL.
Wow.
And some guys even twice, right? So they had a full-on out during that span. And it just goes to show, despite what you do on the field, we're still at the mercy of what's happening in the world around us. So they got hit pretty hard by it, but to their credit, they fought through it and played through to get to this point where they are right now. But I don't know if we're going to see more progress there, honestly. And even, Chris Sale had just admitted just recently that he's unvaccinated. He's had COVID twice now. First time he was symptomatic. Yeah, he was symptomatic where he said he lost taste and smell.
That's wild.
This was early in January. And then recently he said he had no symptoms. Like, when they told him, hey, you got COVID, he was like, are you kidding me? Like, somebody telling me I'm sick when I don't feel nothing was weird, he explained. But he's unvaccinated. And, to be honest, when he said that, it was so shocking. Like, nobody really followed up because all of our mouths kind of dropped. We weren't expecting that because a lot of guys, they just, take the approach of like, oh, it's a personal decision. I don't want to get into it. But him admitting, which we haven't had many guys admit to this point in the season, being such a prominent person on this team, and the fact that he had it before, it was so shocking. And like, everybody was just like, whoa, did he really just say what we thought he did? So, I'm sure there'll be more stories outside of that, but it just doesn't seem to make sense from a competitive standpoint. If you just want to strictly look at it as this gives us an advantage on the field because you lose people to it, for extended period of time, like say he gets it again for a third time, he could be gone for the wild card. Like, if he's a close contact, he's out of the mix completely because he's not vaccinated. So it's a tough place to be in. And I don't know, where we'll end up with this Red Sox team. I don't know if they'll reach that threshold. It doesn't sound like it because it not only includes the major league roster, it includes the coaching staff, it includes front office people, it includes people who come in contact with the major league club, and it includes everybody in AAA. people don't really understand that tier 1 threshold, all of it encompasses. So it's like, not only did it have to factor for the major league clubhouse, but all these outside factors that work into that 85%. So I don't know, man. It's just, it's mind boggling though. To sum it up, it's a head scratcher and I don't understand it. And I'd like to get perspective on it because, you know, I'd like to just understand and without, you know, knowing Chris's medical history or, you know, any things that prevent him or have caused him to be hesitant, it's hard for me to really talk about it. But just from my perspective, it feels like it would be the right thing to do from a competitive standpoint.
I mean, I know you're very optimistic, but how is that situation going to affect the Red Sox in the playoffs?
You know, it remains to be seen. It's one of the things we got to wait and see. They still have about 9 guys by my last count who are still on the COVID IL, but they're about to get a lot of these guys back. And Alex Cora was talking about this past couple weeks, how it hit Christian Arroyo pretty hard, who was having a career year, a recent new addition for the Red Sox, who was a surprise at second base for them, how good he had been. He'd missed an extended period of time. I don't have it in front of me right now, but he's been out, I think, since mid-August, right? Or August 27th, or August 26th. And, like, here we are, you know, almost a month later. And he's still not back. So it just shows the effects that, you know, it's taken on his body. And then you think about last year, like, Eduardo Rodriguez missed the entire year because of complications of COVID. He had myocarditis, which was inflammation of his heart. And it's like, just that alone, if I got this guy sitting next to me who went through that, that's reason enough for me to be like, all right, I'm going to do it because I don't want to have that complication further affect my career potentially or put me out of this game.
I didn't think that dude was going to play again, man.
You know, me either.
Everything that was coming out.
Right. I mean, it was a struggle for him. Like, it was hard for him to get up and do things. Like, you don't want to mess with 2 things, your heart and your brain, right? Like, you don't want to get into a car accident that makes you brain dead, and you don't want to mess with your heart because it's like there's not many of those just lining up, you know what I mean? Like, if you want to get a transplant, you got to have somebody perish in order for you to get one, and you don't even want to do that because there's a time limit on that. Yeah. You want to be, you know, having the goods that you were born with and that you were brought into this world. So when you got people talking about a heart condition, like, that ends careers, that ends people. I mean, limb bias is one, right? You think about people who have had situations where, you know, they had heart conditions, or, you know, Chris Bosh is another who ended his career because of stuff like that. So, you know, it's tough, man. You don't want to play with that stuff. And then, like I said, that would be impetus enough to be like, all right, I'm doing this to hopefully not get to a situation like that.
And
hey, Jahmai.
Oh, go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, you know, that's a really crazy, you know, situation what happened with Eduardo Rodriguez last year, and, you know, I'm glad that he certainly came back from, you know, all that he went through, because, right, I'm sure a lot of people like us didn't think that he'd come back and that would end his career. Just wanted to ask a quick follow-up. What do you think caused the, you know, outbreak and that situation to happen with the, you know, Red Sox? What are the factors that you think, you know?
So it feels like it all happened because, you know, and it's tough, right? It's tough to really pinpoint it, right? They have like these bands that they're wearing to say close contact, but then some people you might forget it. They do their best, right, with where they are right now. But Kike Hernandez was one of the first guys to go on the COVID IL on August 27th. He is vaccinated. So he had one of the cases where, you know, it got through his vaccine, and then it affected him for about a day or two, and then he was fine, he said. But he was vaccinated, and he said it started before they went out on the road, and he said, you know, he was feeling body aches, a little achy, but he's also in a position now with the Red Sox that he's playing more than he's ever played in his career, so he just chalked it up to, you know, the usual end-of-season grind, the August dog days of summer. Like, I'm feeling achy because, you know, I'm working so hard and I've been getting on base a lot. So he thought that was it. So then they travel to Cleveland, and, you know, he gets on the plane the next day. He's talking with his teammates, whatever, and they're all in the same, you know, vicinity, obviously, on an airplane. Then they get to the game, and he said he started to feel symptomatic. So before that, he didn't have like any congestion, anything like that, but he woke up the next morning and started to feel that way. and he asked for a COVID test. So they got him a COVID test, or excuse me, let's go back to the night before. I believe I'm getting this right. They played a game, but it was rain delayed, right? So they had to be in the clubhouse, and it didn't rain in Cleveland. They were just like, we expect rain, but it passed them, right? So they were in a rain delay for almost like 3.5 hours in the clubhouse.
I think I remember that. Right.
And they were talking about it, and it's come out since in several different reports about how some guys weren't masked, whatever. Like they were just, in there passing time. So that was probably the breeding ground for this outbreak on the team when it was not raining, yet they were in the clubhouse in close quarters, stuck waiting for them to give the all clear for them to play. So the very next day is when Kike was saying that he started to then feel like congestion and things like that. And he got a COVID test, came back positive, so he was out. Then it started to hit other people, and there was a domino effect after that. But we think that this was where the Petri dish happened in that clubhouse in Cleveland when they were sitting there amongst each other for 3 hours. So that's when we think the outbreak probably took place.
Interesting. Didn't even think that rain delay would cause that, and
yeah,
it did. I know it's pretty fascinating and
it's crazy, man. It just shows how contagious this thing is, right?
It is, for real.
Crazy.
Facts. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it moves quick. That goes to show right there. This thing's no joke.
With Sale coming back from the injury and him, getting better now, is he the most important player of the Red Sox if the Red Sox make it to the playoff, or if they were to make it a deep playoff run?
I think so, man. 100%. And he said
and him not being vaccinated is not helping that either.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's certainly not ideal, because you're at the mercy of this invisible war that we're all fighting with coronavirus every single day, right?
Yeah. So
you just never know. You got to try to stay vigilant in this fight, and they're doing the best they can, like separating people, having them come to the clubhouse at different hours. And, prior to one of his last starts, before he went on the COVID IL, this most recent time, like they isolated him completely, like put him in a different room and sent him home, that type of stuff. But I would say he's one of the more important. Yeah. They're taking every precaution right now. But I would say that, he's one of the more important pieces because they got 12 games left in the regular season. Sale is making 3 of those starts. Nathan Eovaldi is making another 3. So that's 2 of their top pitchers pitching half of the most important games of the season. So these 2 pieces, they'd like these guys to go deep, and they feel like behind them, they'll be okay. So the way Sale is pitching, the year that Nathan Eovaldi is having, these would be the guys, I think, who would, get the start and pitch significant amount of time in a 1-game wild card, and then, setting them up for then a 7-game series potentially if they get to the ALDS.
Well, let's hope he stays healthy, man.
Man, fingers crossed. He's a big part. I mean, coming off Tommy John, he's a big part. He already missed, 120 something games before he got off the IL for recovering from Tommy John surgery. So then he's also come back from that and been on the COVID IL twice. So it's like you don't want to go in there again. But this is actually something that I think he's going to talk about at some point because. With the pitchers, it's different. Like, they don't really have to talk except every 5 days when they pitch. So that the conversation hasn't been broached again about his vaccination status and, whatever conviction he has as to why he hasn't done it or reasonings. So that could be a conversation that comes out here shortly. And then, maybe he'll talk about it when the season ends as to not, be the story right now.
Cool. Hey, Jahmai, just wanted to ask, what's your favorite moment since you've been working at NESN and covering the Red Sox as a sideline reporter?
It's got to be that Emmy, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's pretty top notch. That's pretty top notch because, like I said, guys, been doing this for 13 years, going on 14 years. And, when I graduated, because it was in May, right? Next year. And this is the only one I got. This is it right here. So that means a whole lot to me. And, I got that at NESN. We got some incredible people who work at the company who are so proficient in what they do and very intelligent in TV. And this is honestly the best job that I ever had. I can never deny that. The opportunities that this company has given me have been just, something that I'm so grateful for. So it's got to be that Emmy. But as far as on the field moments, them winning the World Series, they also gave me a World Series ring.
No way.
Hey,
awesome.
oh, shoot.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Oh, man, that's sick.
I bring that out on Party Favors. It got its own light to it. You know what I mean? So
Oh, nice.
So it's pretty cool. So that stays here. But, it's been a lot of cool on-field moments, them winning it all, being splashed with Gatorade on the field or being part of
I see that on TV. I know.
Yeah, so it's all highlights, man. It really is an enjoyable ride. And it's funny because when Kike came back from the COVID IL, he talked about missing those 10 games and how, at this point in his career, 8 years into his big league career, and he's had to really grind through a lot of those moments, right? Early on especially, but now he's more of an established big leaguer. But how much he missed the game and how that was a reminder about how he needs to appreciate every single moment. And as much as we grind too, as being a part of the baseball press, working every single day, countless hours, thankless jobs at times, and you're doing so much for people, I had to take a step back and remind myself about, how blessed I am to be in this position too. So, I just want to enjoy every moment. It's winding down and I want to appreciate it. And that's the approach I'm trying to take, and have fun really these last few weeks of the regular season. And hopefully we go to a deep October run and, we're the last team hanging in November. So we'll see. But, it's filled with a lot of moments, a lot of ups and downs, but I'm just trying to appreciate every day right now.
Well, that's awesome. You shared two great moments there.
That was pretty cool.
One earlier you mentioned how passionate the Boston Red Sox fans are and how they live to see every pitch, and how different is it covering a Boston team compared to the other cities you've been in?
It's like no other place I've been, man. I mean, it's hard for me to admit that as growing up a Lakers fan and an LA fan of LA sports, but when growing up, we're like, oh, this is Title Town over here. This is championship banners and all that. But I mean, here it's a cult, man. It's a religion. It's really crazy how passionate people are about it.
You know what it is? It's cold. It's cold here. We don't got nothing to do.
Right. I think that plays a factor too, right? Right. Like
we're not out there surfing.
Exactly. Right. If you had that and all these other distractions, Hollywood and this, that, and the other, it'd probably be different. But this is what people get on, and I understand it too. And these teams, and the ownership groups, they're all in competition, right? They're all they put a product out there that the fans can get behind every single year. It's tough to do that, but every single year it seems like they're trying to get a championship. So I think that makes it different too a little bit because the fan base is behind it. And maybe you would think that some owners take that for granted, right? They're like, oh, these people, they're always going to love us, but that's not the case. Like they'll get on you when you're doing bad, and they'll also, love you tremendously when you guys are going good and you're winning championships. So people have been spoiled around here probably the last 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
We have been.
For sure.
I'm guilty of that, so.
So am I.
Yeah, exactly. Try being a, Cleveland Browns fan or one of those people or,
oh, man.
Cavaliers now that LeBron is gone, right?
A Lions fan. I don't want to be a Lions fan.
Oh, God, that's the worst.
Jacksonville.
So
right.
You guys
don't
have
want any of that stuff right there.
Right.
So obviously, your career's been progressing over the years. You've taken it one step at a time, and every time you've gone somewhere, it's somewhere higher and doing bigger things. Where do you see your career progressing? In the press, do you want to make a move? Someday, not now, so people at Nesson don't talk to this guy. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, it's funny, man, because this question, I get it a lot, and it's changed. Honestly, it is constantly evolving. And it has over the years, because when I first got into it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this journey, and I just want to be back home, covering the teams that I grew up with, covering the teams that I cheered for, and I feel like that'd be a success. And then you start to get a little bit notoriety in your career, and then you have national networks calling you, you have regional networks calling you and feeling like, hey, this guy has a little bit of talent. We like him to work for us. So then I was like, all right, bet. Let's go to ESPN. Let's work on national TV. You know what I mean? Like, let's elevate to that level. So, you know, it's changed over the years, but then life hits you, right? You got a family. I got 2 small girls. I got a wife. You know what I mean? These people are also factoring into those decisions. It's not just about me anymore. So right now, I think I'm good where I'm at. You know, that's where I'm gonna be. Right. I'm gonna be so,
Right.
You know, you never know what opportunities come out there. And I will say that, you know, my phone lines are always open. You know, I'm not turning down any offers. I'll listen to anything. So I think that's where I think, you know, things will be for me. And, you know, I'm always open to see what's out there. And I think eventually one day, you know, maybe I'll make that jump to national, but I don't know if that's any time in recent history, because, you know, I got a couple more seasons here before I can even entertain any of that. So we'll see.
I mean, the city might like keep you, you know, because you see
Right.
guys like Jerry Remy, you know, Tommy Heinsohn. These guys made a whole career, you know, being here, and you know the town, the city, the state, it loves them. You know what I'm saying? We hold them in high regard. So I think it'd be pretty cool to have you there, you know, climbing in the ranks. And
yeah,
you're
no,
in
I
our
mean,
ear
you know,
on
I
a
got to
daily
give a shout out to
basis.
my guys who have, you know, set the table. I mean, Kyle Draper was here for so long. We lost him,
Yeah,
unfortunately, out west.
Yeah.
That's my dude, man. You know, so like Celtics fans and all the people embraced him for himself as well. So it's like you appreciate that. And it's the same thing with the players. Like, they get a different vibe here because people are showing up night after night and they're cheering for him and they love him. So you get kind of high off that, right? Like the notoriety and how people recognize you. You're walking into these different places and it's like no other place. So that is cool. You know, to be a fixture here in Boston is like, you know, that's like Hall of Fame, man. That's amazing. So I think that's something that necessarily didn't cross my mind before, but you see it and you're like, man, that's dope. I want to be part of that.
absolutely. I think you know, we here at the Pro Fan Sports Podcast, we definitely look up to guys like you, you know, because that's what we're trying to do, getting the repetitions and hopefully being in somebody's sideline. You know, Barry and I, we got to actually interview Jason Tatum a couple Saturdays ago, and that was so exciting, man. And we definitely want to go in that direction.
That's major.
What
That's
advice
facts.
do you have, you know, for us to help us move along and get bigger in this industry?
I mean, you guys are doing it, man. This is it right here. Seriously. And I tell everybody that because this is an avenue that, I mean, as horrible as the pandemic was, people got so innovative and we got introduced to so many different technologies that make the world such a smaller place. Like, you can do this with anybody. Send them an email, reach out to them on Twitter. And this is it. This is an avenue that I didn't have when I was coming out of school. And same thing with podcasts, you know, different radio programs, whatever. Like, you can literally create any content. So you build it. And like you said, you know, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Like, you grind every day. You put your best foot forward as if the world is watching. You put together a product that you're proud of and something that you put into work into, and the results will follow, man. It's about the work that people don't understand. Like, putting that in is creating positive habits. It's creating good habits for when you get that opportunity. And then you get to a place where now you have the financial backing. You also have the resources. It's like you don't just get that by just showing up. So doing stuff like this, getting those reps, it's all about repetition, you know, refining your interview skills, whatever, you know, your own camera presence, your voice. When you find that, and then you can present it to somebody and they'll be like, okay, I like this, you know? So I think that's the biggest thing is you guys are doing it. You're not, you know, sitting at home waiting for somebody to call you. You guys are actually doing what you want to be in, you know? So that'll pay big dividends as you go on throughout this. And, you know, it's a small world, man, this media thing. You know, a lot of people are connecting. You never know. Somebody might be like, oh, I'm looking for this. And you never know how your names come up. So I think networking and staying connected with people is also good as well.
One last question for you.
I had one as well, but you can go ahead, Vlad.
All right,
Two last questions.
Sounds good. Well, earlier you talked about playing basketball in high school, and maybe you were thinking of going to a D3 school so you can play more ball. And I know like you also shared with us your story, how you got to Nesson, and it's I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming it wasn't always your dream to cover specifically baseball.
Nah. That came out of nowhere. Yeah, that fell in my lap straight up.
My follow-up question to that is, what is the sport that you wish you were covering?
It's got to be hoop, man. That's my love. It's a love of the game. I love basketball, you know, and then football will be second. It's just like, you know, most people who come from a minority household, these are the sports that black people love and that they associate with. And you think about the numbers about baseball, like when baseball was at its height with black athletes, when people had Griffey, Frank Thomas, and Barry Bonds, and just so many different athletes who were black people look up to, was like the mid-90s was like 22%. Baseball, like baseball now is like 7% black. So we don't have those superstars, especially not, I mean, there's not a black player on the 40-man roster of the Red Sox right now. So it just shows how far we have gone.
Wow, that's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
So
they're all Hispanic.
Right.
That's true,
you know, and Afro Latino is good too. Like, you know, we in the diaspora, so I represent with that as well.
Cool.
But it's just like, you know, Mookie was fantastic having him here. JBJ was fantastic having him here. You know, and it's just like now that that's gone, and then you're seeing that around the game, right? So like young black kids coming up don't see those big superstars as much, and they can relate to that. So that's why baseball is not really a sports that we gravitate to. Basketball is good. Plus, it's a game of failure. Like, you fail 7 times out of 10, you're a Hall of Famer. Yeah. You know, and it might be even less now because, I mean, we're seeing some wicked stuff, how people are pitching and manipulating the balls, and it's such a harder game now. So it's like, that's why I got out of it. You know, I didn't get past Little League because I was like, man, this sucks. Striking me out every 3 times. Like, you want that instant gratification. But, you know, I almost wish like my parents would have been more, you know, on me to give it a little bit more of a try, because I would have eventually had more success offensively. Like, I was great defensively, but because of my athleticism coming up, but offensively it was a struggle to like recognize pitches and, you know, not swing at stuff that felt like it was, you know, coming in there in your sweet spot. So that's why it's tough. Basketball, you can get instant gratification. You can get buckets. Football, you can score touchdowns, make tackles, whatever. And even track and field, which is what I ran as well, because my dad's a track coach. But it's just like, that's the issue with the sports like that right now. And then that's what's keeping the youth from it. But the game is changing. You got some young superstars, I think, you know, from the Dominican Republic and places like that. Xander Bogaerts right in our backyard from Aruba. I mean, it's some great players who look like us, may not be the same language, so to speak, entirely as far as the native tongue, but I think it's still some guys to look up to. But it definitely has been tough as far as, you know, keeping African Americans in the game like that, which is why, you know, even to this day, like I said, like this fell into my lap. Like, I never sought this. This is not something that I was like, I want to be the sideline reporter for the Red Sox as my dream. But, you know, when opportunities come, right, you put yourself out of your comfort zone and you get to it.
And you get to it, yeah.
Yeah. So I hope it changes. I hope the game, you know, gets more youth involved. And, you know, we got people who are playing it at a high level who look like us.
I mean, hearing you talk about this just got me asking one more question. Now that you are doing baseball, are you stuck to baseball? Like, do you think a company would risk hiring you to cover basketball?
You know, it's an interesting question, and I don't think they would, because like the skills translate, right? It's just a different sport. You can like, I do hockey now. If they ask me to do hockey, I do hockey. I never played hockey in my life, but I do it because, you know, the skills translate, right? It's still questioning and answering and following up and doing your research, understanding the trends of that game, right? And like baseball was like, it was like 3, 4, 5. It was down there as far as sports that I enjoyed and that I would spend time doing. But I got a different appreciation now. I got more perspective, and I actually really love this game. Like, I enjoy it, you know, and I watch games. And this is the first time in my life where I watched 162. I will have watched.
That's crazy.
Wow, really? Dang.
So it's just like, you know, because again, like you don't understand it, or it's too slow, right? When you get more action into the games, people gravitate towards it. Like, my grandmother used to watch the Giants religiously. And I used to be like, this is so boring, man. It'd be in the summer. I'm like, I just want to go outside and play, right? And now it's like I find myself doing the same thing because I enjoy the game. So, but as far as like somebody hiring me to do something else, I don't think so, because that was my background before. Like I was in local television, so I rotate with the seasons. I'm covering all the sports. You know what I mean? I was in Hawaii covering canoe paddling in the summer, so I could do anything.
Oh, man. Wow, you was grinding. That grind was different.
Talk about, you talk about grind. That right there, like you're in a place that's in the middle of the Pacific and there is no professional sports. You got to find a way to fill your 3 to 5 minute commitment nightly. That's it, man.
Yeah.
I'm in people's backyards. Whatever we got going on, I'm all on it. Surfing, canoeing, I'm on it.
No, for sure, man. Question I wanted to ask you was, during your time covering, the Red Sox, who some of the, favorite players that, you enjoyed covering the most in the locker room, and any crazy locker room stories that you'd like to, share with us?
So nothing crazy, except I guess a crazy locker room story, is one that sticks out is just the championship celebrations in the 2018 season, like champagne spraying all over the place, players dumping it on your head. That sticks out, obviously. That's kind of like a way that you can also be a part of it after you have grinded through a season as well, which is fun. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if that's going to be a possibility still with us not being in the clubhouse this year, but those are some memories that stick out. Favorite players right now, in recent memory, like Alex Verdugo, that's my guy. I was actually I was following him, even when he was with the Dodgers coming up through the organization, obviously, because I keep tabs on them as well a little bit, but big fan of his, authentic dude. Really, what you see is what you get, and he's a real person. So I like that. I vibe with him. I like JD as well, JD Martinez, somebody you can talk about the game with, who really is into hitting and can really teach you something as well, and very, very thorough. Like, he's a great storyteller. We actually interviewed him for My Story a couple seasons ago, and oh my gosh, like, he was a little bit salty about having to do it, but he ended up spending like an hour and a half with us, really, and just talking the game and stories and stuff. Really insightful, something that you like to get from players. Christian Arroyo was another one, big personality right now. Xander Bogaerts, love that dude. He's like my favorite player right now, really. It's, him and Tim Anderson, two of my favorite shortstops, right? So I really like his game and what he brings. Mookie, another one. I'm sad that he's gone. JBJ, that's my guy as well. Yeah. Rick Porcello, one of the unheralded guys who's no longer really in baseball right now, but he's only like 32, 33 out of it. Maybe he finds a way back, but when he was here, he taught me a lot about not only being like a good at your job, but like also, not only being like, not only about baseball, but also about like being a professional, like being in the press and coming correct, like with your questions, everything, right? Because he would challenge you and make you like even question like, dude, that's stupid, or what are you doing? Like ask me real questions type of stuff. So I got mad respect for Rick because he would challenge me and make sure that what you're saying is what you mean, right? Because a lot of times in the press, we just ask ridiculous stuff, or we ask stuff that is just off the top of our head, and then players answer and coach speak is what they say, right? Just like, oh yeah, we got to play harder, or we, the usual two-liners that you get. But he would actually be thoughtful in his answers and his approach, and he would expect the same from you. So I love that guy for that. And, I told him as much as well, but those are some of my favorites right there, really, man. And I never got a chance to cover Big Papi, although we become acquainted, since he retired. I see him around, and he always shows love. So big personality. Pedro Martinez the same way. But, yeah, some of those guys who I got a chance to cover recently, they've been good to me, and, have a blast really covering. And this team is fun, too. A lot of good guys on there. So you really can't go wrong with anybody.
Right, that's what's up, man. Those are all great, players and personalities and good people for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Good guys.
Absolutely, man. Jahmai, again, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to have this discussion with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You could have been doing, taking care of your kids, but you're here discussing with us. So
right.
Really appreciate it, man. And, that helps us elevate as a podcast and helps push us forward, and, so we can, get a little closer to the goals that we have. So again, thank you so much, man, and hopefully we'll get you back on here sometime soon.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Happy to do it, man. Love to y'all for having me for real. And yeah, definitely, man. We'll do an end of season recap or something or whatever.
I like that.
I'm only a phone call, so it is.
Yeah, for sure. And Jahmai, the next time you come on here, we gotta talk hoop. Now that you're a big basketball guy, right? And we're all basketball guys here too, and love the game of basketball, and and like to talk, Celtics and NBA. So the next time we invite you on, we'll definitely chop it up and and talk some hoops.
Oh yeah, let's do it, man. Because after baseball season, I'll be transitioning as well. Be covering some Patriots and then get some Celtics action as well before I get back into baseball again.
Oh, word! That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what's up.
So we'll see, man. That was my role previously, but we'll see, because also you gain a lot of comp time, right? So I got to have a lot of time off before I get in. So they may not see me till January. We'll see.
All right.
No, I feel you. I hear you.
You have a good night.
Thanks for coming on, man.
No doubt.
This was awesome. This was a pleasure and an honor having you on. So thank you so much for your time and for being on the podcast with us. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Much love to you guys and continued success.
All right.
Likewise. Same to you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Right.
All right. Well, good stuff.
Yes,
that was
sir.
Awesome, guys. Good interview.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Jahmai Webster came on. We got Barry. You look like, you're just a wall talking right now.
I know, yeah.
yeah. But if you're still watching, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Obviously, we got Emmy Award-winning people coming on the show. Like, who does this? What I'm saying? Like, what other podcast does this? Other than like the big guys.
That's right. Talk your shit, John. Let them know. Talk that shit.
You know what I'm saying?
Having Emmy Award winners pulling up, and that's not the first one that's pulled up. Remember, Max Letterman also pulled up
number 2
on the podcast. Right. A bunch earlier during basketball season, right?
So we're working.
Yeah, it's already on our second one. Shoot, we may have a third one soon. Who knows? Stay tuned.
Hey, make sure you guys are following us on social media, man. We're on Instagram, profans_sports, and profansports, everything else, including the YouTube, youtube.com/profansports. We appreciate the support. It's helping, pushing us forward in this industry, like I was saying earlier. And the more you do it, the better we get. So until the next episode, man.
Peace out, everyone. Have a good week. See y'all next week. Subscribe to the channel.